Welcome to the Supplier Diversity and Inclusion Podcast by Fips Consulting. In this podcast, I speak with international guests who share their experience on supplier diversity and inclusion. Today, I speak to Philip DeVliegher, who is the Vice President, Supplier Diversity at Disability In. Phil, it's so great to have you on my podcast.
Andrea, thank you very much for the invitation to join you today. It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Can I ask you, where are you calling from today?
I am calling from the Washington, D.C. metro area. I sit actually in Maryland, right outside of Washington, D.C.
Okay, so I hear it's also very cold there right now. So
It is cold. It is January, but it is cold, and we do have snow on the ground, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. So, but we're here today to talk about your organization, Disability In. So, I think that Disability In is not very much known in Europe yet, and we actually want to change that. So maybe you can share some background and history of Disability In.
Of course, happy to do that. Our organization grew out of government here in the United States. In particular, the efforts around the Americans with Disabilities Act in the 1990s. And our organization focused on business and the inclusion of people with disabilities within business. And that has always been our mission. And we've always felt that a partnership with the private sector will really help to move the needle around disability inclusion. And that has proven to be the case.
So you're historically out of the U.S., and you mentioned the purpose is mainly about more inclusion in business, but you also support businesses that are led and managed and owned by people with disabilities. So how does that fit into the whole organization? How is that spread up?
Of course. So at Disability In, really our mission is to empower business to become more disability inclusive across their entire enterprise. And that includes within the workplace, within the marketplace, reaching consumers with disabilities, and also within the supply chain. So including, as you mentioned, businesses that are majority owned by people with disabilities. And we know for a fact that individuals with disabilities are more likely to be self-employed than those individuals who are not living with a disability. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to support those self-employed or entrepreneurs with disabilities. So we touch on really every aspect of business and help our corporate partners become better at providing an inclusive and equitable environment for everybody.
Right. So it's like the holistic view of inclusion of a company. And you mentioned corporate. So how does that work? How do corporates engage with you? Is there like a member fee to access some kind of database, or do you connect companies with people with disabilities and businesses owned by people with disabilities, or how does the connection work there?
Of course, and all of the above, really. So our corporate partners play an important role in the work that we do. We couldn't do the work without them. We have currently over 500 corporate partners. Many of them are Fortune 500, 100 companies, multinational organizations that have operations not just in the United States, but around the world. So they come to us, and we meet them where they are on their disability inclusion journey. So whatever that might look like.
Right.
We help them build supplier diversity programs that are inclusive of people with disabilities, as well as help them in their workplace challenges around people with disabilities. So we have programs really that meet all of those needs. And where I come in is really around that supplier diversity supply chain effort around people with disabilities. As you mentioned, we certify businesses that are majority owned and operated by individuals with disabilities and help connect them to our corporate partners. And hopefully, at the end of the day, they're able to do business with each other.
Right, right. So you mentioned certification. So I can imagine it's not easy to have like a set definition for what is a disability. So how do you handle that? What is a disability for your organization to be able to get a certification?
A really important question, and one that often comes up in conversations. So outside of the United States, we follow the United Nations Convention on People with Disabilities definition of disability, and it's relatively broad, like it is also here in the United States, where we follow the Americans with Disabilities Act definition. So that criteria around disability really models those definitions. And we also take into account any specific country definitions or nuances around that general definition when we're certifying businesses that are owned by people with disabilities.
As you mentioned, I mean, you've been in the U.S. for many years already, so I can imagine it's a bit more known that there is an organization like Disability. But how do you handle, or how do you make sure that you get more traction, more visibility outside of the U.S., and how do you find then businesses which qualify as being disabled as per your definitions?
You've brought up a really important point, and one that we've always been challenged with since we implemented certification in the United States, about 13 years ago. So in the supplier diversity certification space, we are relatively new.
Right,
And the biggest challenge is really around self-disclosure. Oftentimes we will encounter business owners with disabilities who may not want to identify as a person with a disability and be certified as a business. And potentially the fear is that, they may lose contracts, they may lose business because of their disability. So that's a hurdle that we've always kind of needed to move over. And we're slowly but surely, through education, through conversations with people, around disability, breaking down those barriers.
Right.
So self-disclosure is a big challenge. The other challenge really is people's perception of what disability really is. So oftentimes we encounter business owners, even corporate partners, who may live with a condition that they don't necessarily consider to be a disability themselves, but it actually falls under the definition of a disability and would qualify that individual as a business owner to be certified. So, a great example would be chronic migraines. Oftentimes we think of disability as something that we see. Those individuals who may be blind or deaf or wheelchair users. But 75% of disabilities are non-apparent. So it's really, again, around educating our stakeholders on what disability looks like and that they actually may qualify for that certification. And be proud of that disability,
Right.
and recognize that it is part of their identity, and they shouldn't really hide it, because they can take advantage of it, and it can be a superpower for many who are seeking contracts with private sector companies.
Right, right. I mean, it's probably it goes kind of into the same as ethnic minority-owned businesses or women-owned businesses, that they're like not really want to flag themselves or have kind of a stamp as business owned by an underrepresented group, but still there is lots of advantages you can take out of that as well, like where corporates are specifically looking to work with businesses which are owned by diverse groups.
That's exactly right, Andrea. And I'll also add that, disability isn't just a silo all to itself. Disability reaches across all dimensions of diversity, right? So I would say probably well over half of our currently certified suppliers are part of another diverse community, very much intersectional, right? So we have women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, LGBT-owned businesses who are also disability-owned businesses. So again, it's an area that a lot of people don't necessarily prioritize in the supplier diversity space, at least up until now, right? But we're going to change that.
Right. We're gonna change that. We're gonna also make disability more known in other parts of the world than just the US. So what are the main drivers for you to continue?
Yeah, I would say for me and for many of my colleagues here at Disability In, disability touches our lives personally, whether we are ourselves individuals with disabilities, and I have non-apparent disabilities, or whether it touches our family or our friends. You'll find that our team at Disability In is very passionate about the work that we do every day. And that's really again, going back to our mission and vision, is to build an economy that includes everyone, including individuals with disabilities, that can participate fully and meaningfully in the economy and in work and business. So we are, considering that around the world, 1 in perhaps 8 individuals lives with a disability. Most likely disability touches a lot of people around us, right? So for us at Disability In, it is part of who we are, part of our nature to help support and drive inclusion for people with disabilities.
Right.
So, I'll just add, Andrea, we have every year, our signature event is our annual global conference. This year it will be the week of July 15th in Las Vegas, Nevada, here in the United States. And we anticipate that we'll probably have 3,000 to 4,000 conference attendees at that event alone, from all over the world, including our certified businesses here at Disability In.
Right.
And I will say, just, based on conversations that I've had with past conference attendees, that it is a life-changing event. And in speaking with, one supplier in particular, I remember him telling me, Philip, this is the only place that I can be myself and be comfortable in the work that I do and not be judged by my disability. And I think when individuals see that and feel that, they understand why we do what we do.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned around 3,000 people attending your conference in Vegas in July. So you also have a CEO letter which has been signed by almost 200 corporates. So can you share some details about that?
That's exactly right, Andrea, and we're really proud of our corporate partners who have signed on to that statement to indicate that they are with us, they are in with us to advance disability inclusion within their organizations and to commit to completing the Disability Equality Index, which is our signature benchmarking tool that helps companies on their journey of disability inclusion. So those nearly 200 CEOs have committed to doing just that, and we're really proud and excited to be able to grow that list of CEOs and to bring them on board and on our journey along with everyone.
If anyone's interested to know which companies have actually signed that letter, I mean, you have about 200 which signed the letter, but also about 500 corporate partners overall which are supportive of disability in.
That's exactly right. And I know this may sound cliche, but, we're on a journey. We're all on a journey. We're all learning. And, and we have corporations who come to us who don't have policies or practices in place currently, but have come to us and joined our network to be able to build those policies and practices in the right way. So, and that's our job. That's why we're here, is really to help empower them to do the good work that they do.
So, as we discussed at the very beginning, disability in coming out of the US, but you really have like the global expansion plan. So what is the outlook for the coming years or for short and midterm?
Yeah, it's a really great question. So, Andrea, in the supplier diversity space, we are certifying in a number of different countries outside of the United States. So, in the UK, we have certified suppliers in Canada, in India, in the EU, as well as we're looking at expanding within Latin America, in particular Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina. We also have a desire to grow our certification in other parts of the world. That supplier diversity is an initiative that already exists. So, for instance, in Australia, in South Africa, those are countries that we're closely looking at, branching out and growing our certification there. But with our Disability Equality Index that I mentioned, the benchmarking tool that we provide, we've grown that this year to include 7 countries outside of the United States. And we anticipate to continue to grow those efforts through our benchmarking tool, because really that's the foundation of the work that we do. It's really to help companies identify their baseline, where they are on their disability inclusion journey and where they want to go. And we help them to get to where they want to go.
So in the countries that you mentioned or where you're expanding, are you working with partners there, or how do you make sure that you find or grow your network? Yeah,
really important, right? It's all about collaboration, I think, today. We can't do this work alone. And we recognize those organizations and companies that are advancing supplier diversity in particular, around the world. I will say, one of our most valued partnerships is with We Connect International, who certifies women-owned businesses around the world. They have a large global footprint, and they've made tremendous strides over the years in growing their pool of certified women-owned businesses. We look to organizations like theirs to reach their constituents, to reach their stakeholders, to share more about disability and to educate them on, as I mentioned before, what disability kind of looks like and how they can be part of the disability movement.
Yeah. So I had a great pleasure to also talk to Michael Tobolsky in one of my episodes. If you want to know more about We Connect International, then check this one out. But we're almost at the end already, and I was just wondering if there is anything, one last thought or advice that you want to share here.
Of course, and it's been a pleasure to be with you again, Andrea. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Of course. So I would say to those suppliers who may not be currently certified as a disability-owned business is to really look beyond those barriers that we talked about and to own your identity. Disability is part of who you are. To own it, be proud of it, and leverage it. Because through certification, you as a business owner can gain access to opportunities that you would never have imagined without that certification. So I would say leverage it, get certified, and become part of our network. And for those organizations, those companies, those corporations that aren't yet on the disability journey, I would say, what's holding you back?
Yeah.
Because this is, as I mentioned, 1 in 8 individuals with disabilities live around the world. I would say you're missing out on a tremendous business opportunity to reach those individuals, whether they are your employees, whether they are your customers, whether they are your shareholders, or whether they are your suppliers. You are missing out on opportunities if you are not including individuals with disabilities within your business planning and strategy. So join in. Be part of Disability In.
Thank you. I love your advice, and I think for many people, especially in Europe, it's not very clear, how the definitions work, how the certification works, and so on. So I will probably put the link to the UN definitions for disability into the podcast information so people can take a look.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you, Phil. You stay warm, and I'm looking forward for more collaboration with Disability In.
Terrific. Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks again for sharing all the insights into Disability In and sharing all the valuable information also about the event. So I put all the links into the podcast information or this episode's information. Now, if you want to make your supply chain more inclusive or want to know more about Disability In, reach out via fipsconsulting.com or Fips Consulting on LinkedIn. Listen in to my next episodes where I talk to more experts about supplier diversity and inclusion and the impact on their business or organization. If you have any inputs or topics around supplier diversity and inclusion you want me to talk about, reach out as well. Thanks much for listening, and bye, Diverse Owned.